youngest of a family of 7, and my parents were Lars and Alice. And we lived at Thor, Iowa. Being the youngest one, I really got out of a lot of things. But then there was always dishes to do. And so then they felt sorry for me sometimes. And I will tell you one thing that we did. We were 4 girls, and on the weekend, we would do all the work for my mother. And I had the sister next to me was the instigator of everything, and she made out lists, and she always got her work done on Friday, and the rest of us were doing our work on Saturday. Well, my dad came from Norway, and he was a hard worker, and when he said something, he meant it. My mother was much easier going. And you could talk to her and kind of swing her around where you couldn't your dad. Okay, this is where I grew up. Well, the house was about the same, but they have done a lot of remodeling in it. There were 4 sisters and 3 brothers that lived here with my parents. And my father had this built in the crib. And it's changed a lot, but still looks like home.
I was born on January 5th, 1914, the 6th of 7 children. My oldest sister was Serena, and Ivor, Joe, Ruth, Henry, myself, and Elmer. My dad's name was Rasmus, and he came from Norway when he was 19, and came to this country and didn't know anybody personally. He had some contacts, but that's all. He came to Randall by train and then walked 2-3 miles east to a Seabold family, which he knew about, and that's where he started his connection in this country. My mother had some connection with Barlands in Radcliffe, and she came to Radcliffe then by train. Of course, that's the only means of travel at that time. And she was, from Norway, and she was, well, she's a little younger than Dad. Well, Dad was always quite conservative, and with money and with talking and everything. She was a little more open and talkative. Ivor was the oldest brother, and he was more the farmer of the boys. And I was probably closer with him at first, but then, of course, Henry was closer to my age. But, and then Joe was an inventor from the time he was a kid. And, well, when he went to high school, as I was telling you before, he made a crystal radio set, which there weren't any radios around at the time. It was in the mid-20s he did that. How that worked, I'm not sure, but he got a few stations and listened, of course, with earphones on is all. Well, this is where I grew up. I was born about 1.5 miles west of there, directly south of Main Street of Radcliffe. But that, I don't remember anything of that because I was between 1 and 2 years old when we moved to the Aleda place. We went to the Lutheran church in Radcliffe and went to that one until I went into service. And just after that, then a new church was built, and we belonged to that too. In 1918, the tornado came through there. I remember a lot about that because it took everything but a part of our house, and we were in the cellar. And when we came out, the windows we were out of the house and we couldn't live there for quite some time. From the time I was a kid, able to do anything, I'd help. Like when I went to school, I'd maybe put feed in the feed boxes for the horses and bedding and hay and things ready, and same with the cattle.
They didn't have too much pasture, and they would send the cattle out on the road, and that was my job, and I didn't like it very much.
Well, I like to see things grow, put seed in the ground and see it with her.
I never had to milk cows, but the sister next to me, she didn't want to milk cows either, but they had me down in the barn and checking to see that she was using both hands as she was milking. That was all I had to do.
It was just about a mile, and we did walk that. I remember one time Dad took us to school, and I don't know if it was mud or snow or what it was, but if it was too bad that we couldn't walk, we'd stay home.
First grade through 8th grade in the country, and then 4 years at Thor in the high school.
Well, that was 8 years of grueling.
What were some of the tricks you played?
Well, I didn't pull any tricks. I got accused of doing some of it.
I wanted to play basketball, so they didn't come and get us at that time, and so I walked home in the dark and very afraid that somebody was going to take me, but nobody did.
Well, I don't remember just how many were in the school, but we're 4 in my class, and 2 girls and 2 boys. Yeah, I don't know anything too special about it. We went across the street, or across the road, to Nybar's, because they had a nice orchard there, so in the fall we'd always go over there and get apples to eat.
I do remember the first time I drove the car, and we didn't even have to take driver's tests then, you know. And I know my sister-in-law Gladys was with me, and I was in Dakota City, that's near Humboldt, and they were fixing the bridge, and I had to drive on these boards, and I thought, sure, I would end up in the river.
We didn't have any money to throw around.
What was it like?
Well, like even when I went to high school, I did get a class ring, which there weren't, you know, a lot of them couldn't even get that. But they were just $5, $6 a piece at that time, a nice ring. But we just scraped, you know, or were conservative all the way through. Never went hungry.
His mother, you know, was sick, and he came in to buy rolls and stuff.
Coming in.
Well, I had a friend that worked at the bakery, sister of the wife that owned the bakery, and I was with him quite a bit. And then, of course, and my mother wasn't too well that one summer, and I had to go and get baked goods.
Of course. And then
Then I met this young, good-looking gal.
Well, it was on Memorial Day, and we went with 2 other couples, wasn't it, to Boone. And that's when we watched the trains come in.
Went into service in June of 1942.
I worked at Gates Department Store, and then after that I went to Chicago and worked at the Merchandise Mart.
Well, I never was out of this country. I worked as a mechanic first. Well, I went to 3 different mechanic schools. One in Kansas City first, then to Garden City, Kansas, forgot, and was there for about 1.5 years. Then I went to Biloxi for about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months.
They had cups that they would put the ticket and the money in, and then they'd send it up to me, and then I'd take that off the wire and take the money out, and if there was change, put that in there and send it back.
When I was in Garden City, Kansas, I worked on basic trainers, at BT-13A trainer. Pilots, you know, were there for their training, and we serviced them. Then in San Diego, we were trained for work on B-32s, a bomber, a new type bomber, or B-24s, either one. They're pretty much similar. So when we came back to Fort Worth, then I worked on B-24s. I found a big unspent bullet in there too once. A big thing. I don't know what caliber that'd be, but I picked it up and kept it for a while, but I got rid of it.
We kept in touch there, and then I went down to Biloxi, Mississippi, and that's where we were married.
When we were being transferred from Garden City to Biloxi, I had a little bag with me, and I left that in the seat when I think the train stopped in St. Louis, and several of us got out and just got some fresh air, and then came back, and I noticed my bag was sitting in the seat and had been opened, and I looked in there, and the wedding ring was gone. So there were a few fellas in there. I kind of suspected that they were pulling a trick on me, but they didn't say anything about it. So I went out and get the, what do you call it, MPs. And, well, by the time I came in and they came in, the ring was back in the suitcase.
It was not a very big wedding like what they have now. We had 2 attendants, and that's all. Went out for dinner that night.
Well, it is a simple wedding. It is in a small mission Lutheran church in Biloxi. Pastor by the name of Pike. And a friend of mine, a fellow that I had been going to school with, was a witness, and then the organist in the church was the other witness.
You know, we had our first baby down there in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth. Like quite a while. And this is our firstborn child. It was just a matter of an hour or 2.